actual evaluation? What if the evaluation is saying that your child is functioning on a 14-month level and you know he's functioning on an 8-month level? One of the things that's provided for with these kids within the law is something called an IEE, which is an independent educational evaluation. You can request one of those per year if you need it. Here's the deal. If you're going to do it right. Because if you have problems with speech and you go get an IEE for speech, and then next week you have a problem with OT, you've already had your IEE. So one of the things that I typically tell parents to do is a lot of times when you do an IEE, do a full neuropsychological evaluation. If you do a full neuropsych, you're covering all domains. Yay! Look at that. It's gotten dramatic in here. Do what? Yes, that is at the school's expense. And here's the deal. That can start in early intervention. And here's the deal with it. They typically won't tell you, so if you don't know to ask for it, you're not going to get it. The other thing too is, and this is pretty classic, a lot of times you'll say, well, you know, I'm really not in agreement with what your evaluations are coming up with, and I'd like to have an independent educational evaluation. And they go, okay, here's our list. Well, you can choose whoever it is you want to choose. You do not have to use their list. They will tell you you have to use their list. You do not have to use their list as long as they're qualified. Do you hear what I'm saying? We can't go to, you know, Joe's Crab Shack down the road and ask them to do a neuropsych eval. I mean, you got to make sure you're going to the right places and that these are licensed and accredited people. But it can be the person of your choice. Now, when the evaluations come back and you look at the results of that, they have to consider those evaluations in the end game. They don't have to honor them. They just have to consider them. But here's the deal. It makes their job harder. And let me tell you what I mean by that. We'll go back to what we said about 30 minutes of speech for a nonverbal kid, okay? And here's the school system's speech eval that's putting him at however many months of functionality and saying that he needs 30 minutes a week of group. And then we have a neuropsych done that says, holy cow, this kid's functioning on an 8-month-old level and he needs a minimum of 5 hours a week of intensive one-on-one speech therapy. Well, even though we know they don't have to honor it, they just have to consider it, they're going to have a really hard time, gang, reconciling that. Gee, can you tell me how these can be this far off? Because, gosh, I'm having a hard time with that. 30 minutes in a group setting, 5 hours minimum a week of intensive one-on-one pull-out? What's not right? And sometimes it behooves you to even get a second opinion so that you walk in the door with, you know, now we got two saying this and one, okay. You know, it's helpful for you. It's very helpful for you. Does that make sense? Okay. Say that again? Well, an IEE is an independent educational evaluation. So that can be a neuropsych eval, that can be an OT eval, that can be a behavior type eval to look at behavior. But if you do any of those independently, it's still an IEE. So you're better off having the whole big bubba done so we can get it all handled. Okay. Again, don't let the only method of observation, of accountability be teacher observation. We've got to have data in there. Very important. We've already talked about this. One mistake that parents make a lot is to use the word best. I only want what's best for my son. Don't say that. The school is not mandated to provide you with what is best. They're mandated to provide you with what is appropriate for your child to receive a free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment, as long as it has educational outcomes at no cost to the parent. So they don't have to give you a Cadillac. They can't give you a jalopy either. You know, you might get a Ford or a Chevy, but they can't blow you off and give you a go-kart. But don't be asking for Cadillacs and Rolls Royce because you have to, and by the way, what's determined for that child, it cannot be a, here's what we do. It has to be based on what the individual needs of that child are. That's the way the law is written. So when you go into a school system and they go, oh, here's what we do for autism, this. And that's all great, fine, and wonderful, but if that is not meeting the individual specific needs of my child, and he needs X, Y, and Z to be able to get an appropriate education, then they better start X, Y, and Z in. Because it has to be based on individual needs. It cannot be a one-size-fits-all program, and that's a lot of what we see out there, is trying to fit kids into a system instead of trying to find out what's needed individually for these kids. Hang tight. Okay. We talked about this. If you're not in agreement with it, you know, I'm sorry, can you tell me how you arrived at that? Ask what tools were used. Can you please show me the test results? Can you show me the data from what you've done? And then kind of walk me through that process, please, and help me to understand how you went from this to this, because that doesn't make sense to me. Then, you know, it's kind of the same thing I say about a doctor. If a doctor tells you to do something and he can't explain to you why, run. If they're telling you to do something and they can't explain to you how it is that they've arrived at that, they have some explaining to do. Because you can't just arbitrarily pick 30 minutes out of your